Hi, we are cruising right along with the 12 Principles of Permaculture, and already we're on mini podcast episode number 7. So today, I've actually been really excited for this one, is to design from pattern to detail. So I know that might sound kind of boring and a little bit too broad and general, but hear me out for a second. My interpretation of this is, for example, when I'm planting, I have a pattern of how I prep my soil. When I plant a tree, I have a pattern of creating guilds for those trees. When I'm working on a new food forest or a growing space, I have a pattern. When it comes to canning, I have a pattern for canning tomato sauce, for example. I do it the same way. And so the reason I think this might have been included in these 12 principles is because once you find something that works for you and your homestead and your farm and your animals, your vegetation, your growing zone, stick with it. There's so much to be said for trying other forms of farming, right? Learning other practices and bringing them home and implementing them. But if you find something that's truly working for you, stick with it. Let's talk about guilds for a second. A guild is basically a fancy way just to say a neighborhood of plants that surrounds a fruit or a nut tree. And I post a lot about this on my Instagram account. If you have an apple tree, for example, you would set up a guild surrounding that tree. And you would have some trees or some plants that repel unwanted insects and even some diseases. You have plants that attract pollinators, ones that act as living mulches and weed suppressors, and then you've got nitrogen fixers, and you have nutrient accumulators from deep within the soil that bring it upward. So this is why comfrey, for example, is a really great plant that I continue to split and plant throughout the property in every single tree guild, because it's sort of like a better together approach. They all support the health of the apple tree. So guilds are one example of patterns that we use here. Another one would be in creating my new food forest growing spaces. I have sort of my garden proper with a fence around it, but I'm creating these little sort of forests, right? And every time that I'm selecting plants, I go through and I start by patterning the overstory, a mid-story, an understory. What are my mulchers going to be? Are there going to be any vining crops? And so it creates this pattern, but the details within the plants are always changing. Same goes for the guild. The guild members are always changing based on the main tree that they're supporting, whether it be an apple, cherry, pear, walnut, pecan, etc. And those different supporting members are going to change to support that tree species respectively. I hope that makes sense. So those are some of the patterns that we have here on the homestead. And once I sort of found a formula that worked for us, I stuck with it. And I kind of modify as needed. Give me your take. Share in the comments. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back soon with principle number 8 already.